Hello, my name is Bonnie Holmes, and I'm part of the Caribbean culture class. I would just like to take a little time to discuss Life in Debt by Stephanie Miller. You get introduced to this world of like early 2000s post-colonial Jamaica, and you really get to see into the lives of individuals of Jamaica surviving day to day. You also get to hear from the Prime Minister, Michael Manley, and some of the free trade zone workers who were affected by that tragedy. Dr. Michael from the University of the West Indies also was a voice. The biggest part of it probably was hearing from all the banana farmers, dairy farmers, crop farmers who were affected by the free trade agreement. And also, you get to hear the voice of, in my opinion, a pretty pretentious Stan Fisher from the International Monetary Fund and a few individuals involved with the World Bank. This film really poignantly discusses globalization in a way I've never considered before. Its effect on developing countries, as well as the everlasting effects of colonization and slavery. The film interestingly also introduces this idea of perception in terms of native versus tourist perception, which really pushed like the issues across for me. And also what it means to live in a colonized place. Some of the issues that get brought up are mainly around the world of free trade and the International Monetary Fund and how the debt and interest offers nothing but a lack of long-term solutions. There's also really a lack of knowledge and perception between the world, or from the world and the travelers to the natives. It's just a huge disparity of information. So I guess the argument becomes, who is globalization even helping? Is it helping everybody like it claims, or is it really just about the people who have the economic voice and wealth and power, like the superpowers of the United States and Great Britain? And they keep making all these promises that change is going to help, but who sees the brunt of the flaws of those issues except the natives struggling in Jamaica? It's all about, really, I guess it comes down to a matter of privilege. These vacationers love to come to Jamaica and enjoy it there. And these people in Jamaica just want to get out. So yeah, privilege was a very interesting topic in the movie as well. There wasn't a ton about social movements, but I wanted to do a little research after the fact. And I found Afro-Jamaicans for the Urban Poor, and they kind of seem to blend a little closely with the Rastafari, that whole dreads and reggae sort of thing, although that's a very grand generalization. They were more focused on providing a different view of economic policy that kind of deviated from the norm that was being offered to them. And I can only imagine those sort of social movements only gain power with unrest in the country as things continue to go poorly. The movie really drives into the effects of colonialism and slavery that have plagued this problem and have started this whole thing. The masters left and give economic independence to this country with no means of figuring it out for themselves. And the IMF's World Bank, they have all these conditions and all these options, but it really only gives more debt and no solutions. And it's interesting because at the beginning of the independence of Jamaica, they actually had some pretty strong economic growth. They were led at first by the Conservative Labour Party, and they kind of had things under control, and the economic growth was strong. And then as soon as there was the shift to the National Party, the People's National Party, that was about 1972, the policies for health and education went down the drain in addition to the economy suffering, and that's what forced them to reach out to the IMF in the first place. I think this video does a great job of really challenging globalization, challenging this idea that as superpowers, the United States and Great Britain expanded and made the world better for everybody, but clearly it was only better for those who could make it happen. The IMF and World Banks, too, are not free of blame. They made the world go round, but they really, for everyone that needs the help, supposedly, but they only focused on the economic money side of things and not the idea that that there needed to be long-term solutions. And it's interesting because without those long-term solutions, they just keep making the money anyway. I guess in terms of reparations, it's definitely true. It's definitely plausible that that is something that should and could happen. You know, the IMF and the World Bank not only didn't help the situation, but they accrued more debt because of them. And they continued to stifle things like health and education, which should be free, or not free, but should be offered to anybody. And they damaged the internal industry at the same time. All of these farmers and family community businesses were destroyed completely. And it was all because of the inability to support a long-term solution. And a long-winded lack of independence that started this in the beginning. Let's see. Honestly, I guess it just came down to me for what I saw was that, you know, you saw these countries that grew rich at the expense of those whose human wealth was stolen from them. And in that way, it's almost common sense that these reparations should, although who knows if they will, happen. I guess I just didn't, on the debate, I didn't realize that this is how globalization worked. I didn't realize, you know, white history tends to make everything seem like we're just trying to help and this is how it goes. But the IMF and World Bank only seem to work on a platform for those who were the colonizers as opposed to the colonizees, in the layman's terms. And being an economic superpower, free trade is great. It works perfectly. But I don't think free trade is as free as everyone makes it seem. And it's just unfair, for the lack of a better word, that the economy precedes the survival of these human beings. It was really eye-opening for me to watch this film. Being in a place of privilege, it was interesting to have my eyes open to this history that I was unaware of. I mean, I was aware of the fact that white history is taught in schools, but I guess stuff like this, films like this, make me realize how true that is. I really enjoyed the juxtaposition of a tourist versus the native reality, and that really struck a chord with me. You know, you travel to this place like, oh, it's so beautiful here, but you can't possibly understand what's happening. I really enjoyed that this movie put perspective on privilege for me, and on the challenge of globalization, too.